debacle, the obvious and super insulting gaslighting regarding the Epstein files. We'll just start with this clip right here.
The DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review.
So what happened to the Epstein client list that the Attorney General said she had on her desk?
Well, I think if you go back and look at what the Attorney General said in that interview, which was on your network on Fox News.
Quote,
Go ahead.
John Roberts said, DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen? And she said, it's sitting on my desk right now to review.
Yes, she was saying the entirety of all of the paperwork, all of the paper in relation to Jeffrey Epstein's crimes. That's what the Attorney General was referring to. And I'll let her speak for that. But again, when it comes to the FBI and the Department of Justice, they are more than committed to ensuring that bad people are put behind bars.
Okay, so one of the other quotes we hear her say right here.
So we got them all by, hopefully all of them, Friday at 8 a.m., thousands of pages of documents. I have the FBI going through them, and Cash is also, now that we have Cash here, it's a game changer, of course, and Cash is going to, Director Patel is going to get us a detailed report as to why the FBI withheld all of those documents.
Okay.
Right, of course it's a game changer now that Cash is there. So we can see the gaslighting, it's obvious, in our faces, beyond belief. The way that they tell us they have the files on the desk, and then they say they have no files at all. So, once again, exactly, if she's in prison for trafficking people, then who'd she traffic them to? So, one of the major people that is absolutely no nonsense in this situation are these guys right here. If you don't know who Judicial Watch is one of the top entities out there, period, hands down. They have filed a lawsuit. It's probably a FOIA request lawsuit, Freedom of Information Act lawsuit, yes. Here it actually is right here. So they are suing the DOJ under the Freedom of Information Act to force them to release the documents they don't want to release to us. So these guys really deserve, supporting Judicial Watch. And as far as the whole story goes, we all know
night and day to prevent the disclosure of that list? And why is it that the Senate, and good that Bill Gates is lobbying Congress night and day to prevent the disclosure of that list? And why is it that the Senate...
So people like Bill Gates are desperately scratching and clawing, trying to prevent the information from being released. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to understand what's going on here. This is a gentleman who claims that he was in the same cell where Epstein allegedly killed himself. Okay, let's hear what he has to say.
Yes.
What do you think happened?
Jeffrey Epstein would have to be a magician to try to hang himself in that cell. I was in that cell. There's no way there's nothing on the ceiling. The bedpost is this high. I couldn't even go to a restroom without them walking back and forth and having me on camera. There's no way he committed suicide.
So you reckon he was killed?
Yeah.
Why?
I believe that. I mean, look, there's no doubt there was powerful people involved with him, 100%. These people have a way of covering things up.
You were in the same...
All right, so it's not rocket science. This lady here has a very interesting to say here on the Shadow of Ezra page.
I think the reason that many people who are in positions of responsibility in the government might not want this disclosed is I think it has the possibility at a moment when the dollar reserve currency status is in flux and people are feeling pretty sensitive about it. I think if the truth about Epstein came out, those files would lead to a truth about the money that's disappeared out the back door in the federal government and the truth about Operation Warp Speed and why the agency missing $20 trillion is running around demanding we inject mysterious ingredients in people's body, which this administration continues to promote. I think it will help people integrate the dots between the missing money and Operation Warp Speed in a way that really threatens the financial system. It's one thing to manage the dollar successfully. It's another thing to try and manage it when people know your sort of covert tricks. And of course, that covert trick threatens Americans' retirement savings in a very deep and bad way. We don't have a debt problem; we have a robbery problem. And I think if too many Americans connect the dots, many people feel it would be dangerous for the financial system.
Right, dangerous for the banksters. I want to find a video here real quick on Shadow of Israel where it shows that they cut a woman right there. So pay attention to the timestamp here. See, this is not the right video. The video shows a timestamp where they remove 1 minute of the footage from the team's record, the recorded video. It was like 11:59, and it jumps to 12 o'clock. They see it. I was rolling there. You can see 11:58, 57 seconds, 58 seconds, 12 a.m. This is the video they give to people as if we're all bloody retarded. So you got these three here. Now, of course, the rumors are that Bongino and Patel are threatening to resign if Pam Bondi does not resign, or if something does not give here. You know, when I look at Cash there, she is an attorney. Okay, attorneys lie. That's what they do, and they're part of the, the catastrophic. That's Bongino looks ashamed of himself right there, as he should be. He's got this really weird look in his face, and his eyes. They look like the eyes of someone who has been through trauma-based mind control. Okay, this is someone made here. Okay, they remind me of this guy. It did, and this is what I read about Schiff here, is that he looks like one who, as I said, has been through the trauma-based mind control. He's been tortured in order to be kept under control. So this guy wouldn't trust farther than I can throw my truck, but let's hear what he has to say.
I have seen, remember, I was accused falsely on the Epstein, and ultimately I was completely cleared. The woman admitted that she may have mistook me for somebody else and withdrew all of her lawsuits. And so from day one, from the day I was accused, I said I want every document out because I knew every document would prove I was innocent. So let me tell you, I know for a fact documents are being suppressed, and they're being suppressed to protect individuals. I know the names of the individuals. I know why they're being suppressed. I know who's suppressing them, but I'm bound by confidentiality from a judge and cases, and I can't disclose what I know. But I hand to God, I know the names of people whose files are being suppressed in order to protect them, and that's wrong. I have...
Right, again, I don't trust this guy for nothing, but he's making claims there. This was Epstein's attorney and accountant, they were saying. And she had some kind of interesting things to say here.
Glean from what the government has released. What is it?
There's been a lot of information we've been able to glean. And I think what's really just astonishing about this recent disclosure from the government is that they know they are sitting on a treasure trove of information and they're not turning it over. And I've worked on these cases for over 10 years now. There's a plethora of information that the public has not been able to see relating to Epstein and his co-conspirators. And as you said, we have a case going on right now in federal court addressing some of those issues.
What kind of information?
All kinds of information. I mean, certainly if you look at what the government recently disclosed, the first time Pam Bondi came out and gave us some information, you'll see a list where they took multiple computers, multiple items from the houses. You know, they not only secured information from his Florida house, but also from his New York house. What was on those computers? The public has not seen that. What do the financial records tell us? Do they tell us that money was being given to him by certain individuals, that money was flowing out to certain individuals? All of that is critical for the public to be able to know, to understand how someone could have operated a sex trafficking scheme for over 20 years without being convicted.
The Trump administration is getting a lot of blowback from their own base, from their own supporters who have long bought into these conspiracy theories. Why wouldn't they release all that information if they have it?
It's a great question. It's one I've been pondering for quite some time. I mean, we heard this rhetoric at the beginning that everything was going to come out. They would be an open book. This would be a new administration with a new take on the Epstein scandal. But now what we're seeing is the exact opposite. They're walking all of those words back and not standing by them.
Do you have any information that the Attorney General Pam Bondi is refusing to withhold anything or has been asked not to withhold, to reveal something?
Well, it's self-evident. If you just look at the information that we know that they have, there had to be information on those computers. There has to be other information that they could disclose. I understand the concern, and I have that significant concern over protecting survivors' rights and making sure that we're not disclosing, for example, any child pornography information. However, there's a ton of information of what happened in Epstein's world, who was coming into his homes, who was leaving his homes, who he was paying, who he wasn't paying. Et cetera. And that information has not flowed out from the government.
Yeah, you're talking about bank records that should be out there. While the Attorney General was just talking about child pornography, nobody wants to see that. And nobody should see that. But your point is there's a lot of very valuable information that you could be using in your case and that people deserve to know.
People certainly deserve to know. I mean, the survivors out there deserve to know. They deserve the full information of what was happening in Epstein's sex trafficking operation. And that has gone undisclosed, and people have gone without punishment. And that's also a significant disappointment for the survivors that I've represented over many, many years.
You represent Epstein's victims in this lawsuit against Epstein's longtime accountant and lawyer. What are you trying to prove? That they knew what he was doing, that they helped him in some way?
Exactly. So that they were on the inner circle. There were many people. Epstein could not have run this operation without the help of many people. He needed a lawyer who would, cover things up for him. He needed an accountant who would funnel money in certain ways. And as we know, he had a group of people around him who helped protect him and help that scheme to continue running. None of those people have been prosecuted. So this is a civil case that hopes to get at those issues. And we still continue to hold hope that the government will eventually prosecute these individuals.
Excuse me, it sounds like she is going after the attorney and accountant. No, I heard that wrong. So yeah, again, we have this White House press secretary who's been now portrayed as being no better than, the previous White House's press secretary, with these statements, as I played in that first little collage there with the Guardians of the Galaxy clips. Yeah, it's just a bunch of rhetoric. I'm gonna play her clip again. This pretty much sums it up right here. It's actually Musk posted this. Whatever he's about, we'll get to him later in the America Party section here. Anyway, I'm not going to play this clip, but you can see, people are coming to Epstein's defense, making all kinds of claims. It's not that big of a deal. This is one of the best clips I've seen yet. This is Mr. Jesse Waters.
It's never been more clear. Epstein was an intelligence asset. Not only was he working for the CIA, Israeli intelligence, maybe even Russia intelligence. So was the American government allowing an asset to traffic and molest teenage girls all over the world for intelligence? Were we allowing Epstein to commit crimes against children for blackmail material? This is the blackmail jackpot. Hours of video starring the world's most important people. In Epstein Island, in the Manhattan townhouse, in the Palm Beach estate, in the New Mexico ranch. Bill Clinton was good pals with Jeffrey. Flew on the Lolita Express 20.
Right, and now Trump is trying to say that the Epstein files are a contrivance of the Democrats, of Obama and Clinton. I mean, if that is not the most pathetic thing, that's just saying, oh, it's a Russia. That's like saying, Hunter Biden's laptop was a Russia collusion hoax. Or anything that they want to defame and degrade and deny is a Russia hoax. I'm sorry, but that is just about as ridiculous as Trump saying that the Epstein files were created by the Clintons. I mean, get the F out of town, bro. That's one of the saddest things I've ever heard that man say. That is pretty sad. Let's have some hope for that guy.
26 times, went to his private island. So when someone does something that doesn't make any sense, maybe it's because they don't want to be doing what they're doing. Maybe it's because someone's telling them what to do and threatening to release the tapes if they don't.
It's all very strange, and the story gets much stranger once you start pressing a little bit. We've pressed pretty hard for the last few days on this question, not because we have any special affection for Jeffrey Epstein. We've pressed because you don't want to live in a country where it's possible to murder people in federal lockup, cover up the killings, and then get away with them. That's scary. That should not be allowed in this or any other civilized place. But in the case of Jeffrey Epstein, it appears that it was allowed.
So who's in charge at the New York FBI field office? Who's withholding Epstein docs from the Attorney General? This is the guy who emailed his whole staff to dig in after Trump took office. And don't forget that James Comey's daughter is an assistant U.S. attorney for the Southern District of New York. She worked on the Epstein and Maxwell cases. She's kind of knee deep in this. Epstein was facing sex trafficking charges in Lower Manhattan. Where's all that paperwork? The FBI seized computers surveillance videos, banking records, file cabinets, and photographs from all of Epstein's properties in New Mexico, the Virgin Islands, Palm Beach, and in New York. The Justice Department also gave Epstein a sweetheart non-prosecution deal 17 years ago. Where are those files? The Bureau of Prisons. Where are those files? You remember where Epstein killed himself? I asked Bill Barr about that, why everything seemed to go wrong that night.
When I first heard all the information and all the coincidences here, I was suspicious.
What were the coincidences? I mean, those were a lot of coincidences.
Well, one of the cameras was out.
Right.
He was supposed to have a cellmate. Cellmate left. They didn't replace the cellmate. And the guards who were supposed to check him every half hour didn't check him.
My EMT source said he was on the scene immediately to pull Epstein's body out to the morgue. And when he got to the cell, he saw 7 people there touching Epstein's body and moving stuff around.
Dr. Michael Bondi observed the 4-hour autopsy for Jeffrey Epstein's brother, Mark.
Do you think there was foul play here?
The forensic evidence released so far, including autopsy, point much more to murder and strangulation than the suicide and suicidal hanging. I hesitate to make a final opinion until all the evidence is in.
Well, that's former New York City medical examiner Michael Bondi on 60 Minutes saying Jeffrey Epstein's autopsy photos paint a different picture of the convicted sex offender's death, which was officially ruled a suicide by hanging. As new images taken inside Epstein's Manhattan jail cell show several nooses made from bed sheets, pills, and also electrical cords. There were some prescription drugs found.
The photos taken by New York City's medical examiner's office show his bunk bed, piles of sheets, and bed linens all over Epstein's cell. A note and ballpoint pen were also found in which Epstein writes about conditions inside the federal jail Metropolitan Correctional Center. Quote, giant bugs crawling over my hands. No fun. Claims guards sent him burnt food and kept him locked in a shower stall. It also appears Epstein had a sleep apnea machine inside the jail cell with a long electrical cord. All of this raises questions for renowned forensic pathologist Dr. Michael Bondi, hired by Epstein's brother to preside over Epstein's autopsy. If Epstein was such a suicide threat, why did he have access to a ballpoint pen and an electrical cord? Bondi believes that the evidence points to more now that this may have been a homicide. Fox News has also obtained photos of Epstein's autopsy. We are about to show one of those photos, but a warning to our viewers. The photo is graphic. Here is the photo. You can see the bloody line around the middle of Epstein's neck. Epstein had 3 fractures in his neck, which Dr. Bondi had never seen in a suicidal hanging. He says this wound is more common in strangulation by wire cord. He also says the ligature mark on the neck does not match the 2 nooses found inside of Epstein's jail cell. These photos show orange bed sheets tied in the shape of 2 nooses, which appear to have no blood on them. CBS News is reporting that one of the cameras pointing toward Epstein's jail cell door was not working that night. Attorney General William Barr, Sandra said he has reviewed surveillance video himself that shows no one entered the area where Epstein was housed the entire night of his death. Sandra.
A lot to take in there. Brian Yanis, thank you for your...
Except that part where the camera cut off for a full minute. Yeah, have you seen the video of Cash Patel making the bold move of going on to Joe Rogan's show? And Joe Rogan asked him, well, what about the fact that there were bones broken in his neck, which is not what happens when you hang yourself. That's what happens when someone else, gives you the old mafia piano wire treatment, I mean, again, you see those orange bed sheets and there's no blood. It's all just a bunch of props, if you ask me.
Reporting on that.
Bill Barr was the head of the Justice Department when Epstein died in prison. I totally agree with your analysis. There's no way both security cameras glitch out, both security guards fall asleep, the visitor log page is ripped out of the notebook. And who was the head of the Justice Department at the time that happened under? It was Bill Barr. Bill Barr was the CIA's mop-up man. He told his high school guidance counselor, this is in his own autobiography, that his dream job was to run the CIA. His first job was working for the CIA. His first 7 years of his career he spent at the CIA. He went to night law school while he was at the CIA, basically worked through law school with the CIA. His first job out of law school was protecting the CIA from the Iran-Contra investigation when the CIA was perceived to have gone rogue to work in tandem with Santos Trafficante and the whole Tampa and Louisiana and network and Miami in order to run guns to the Nicaraguan Contras and to work with all the different paramilitary groups that needed guns and laundered money all over Operation Condor and Iran Contra. There, when Congress tried to investigate the CIA, it was Bill Barr. Literally, the Washington Post described him as the mop-up man, the CIA's mop-up man to block congressional inquiry into Iran-Contra. He then becomes the head of the Justice Department twice, the second time under Trump. And not only that, Bill Barr's father, Donald Barr, was the mentor to Jeffrey Epstein. He was literally, was a student of Bill Barr's dad at the same high school.
There's no way for us really to put pressure on people to find accountability. What's your thoughts on that with Epstein? I will tell you this before you answer that. I was on the exact same tier, in the exact same cell block that Epstein was. There's no way, in my estimation, that guy committed suicide. No way. Cameras don't go out all at once. People don't stop walking the tier. I mean, there was times there, the toilet is right there in the open. You don't even want to go to the toilet because people are going back and forth all the time. And there's no method in there to commit suicide, to hang yourself like he did. You couldn't do it. You just couldn't do it.
Pedophile Jeffrey Epstein was arrested. So why do we still know nothing about him? Epstein was meeting with the kind of people you'd think would steer clear of a convicted pedophile. Jeffrey Epstein was meeting with one of Barack Obama's top lawyers, Catherine Rumler. She met with Epstein dozens of times. Epstein even tried to set up Obama's lawyer to work for Bill Gates. How is Jeffrey Epstein a fixer between Obama's lawyer and Bill Gates? Epstein was also meeting with Joe Biden's CIA director. He wasn't CIA director at the time. He was Barack Obama's deputy secretary of state. William Burns was working for John Kerry at the State Department and meeting with Jeffrey Epstein, a known pedophile. And then Burns becomes CIA director. Today's director of the CIA went to Epstein's Manhattan townhouse where Epstein had sex with underage girls and, where he filmed other men having sex with underage girls. And William Burns went there and was then promoted to the director of the CIA. Now, I wonder if the future CIA director saw the portrait of Bill Clinton in a blue dress hanging in Epstein's parlor room. A few years later, Epstein was arrested and then hung himself in a jail cell while security cameras just happened to not be working and the replacement guards just happened to fall asleep. And 2 years later, Biden just happens to pick William Burns to run the CIA. So what are we supposed to think? It's never been more clear. Epstein was an intelligence asset.
Sounds like they brought the guy in to get filmed so they could then have him under complete control. And then they could appoint him to be the head of the CIA, basically.
Not only was he working for the CIA, Israeli intelligence, maybe even Russia intelligence. So was the American government allowing an asset to traffic and molest teenage girls all over the world?
That video looped there for some reason. Okay. So this is where Bondi, it has some of her previous clients. She's worked for Pfizer. That doesn't have a direct connection with, although, it kind of does if you understand that every single major corporation that you or I have ever heard of all have the same major shareholders, the BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street, which of course are owned by the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds and, the bloodlines of Queen Lizard Breath and the rest of these entities that, are operating in accordance with the philosophy of, the Straussian, in accordance with the philosophies of what you might call the Nephilim, the entities that want to treat us like their sheep, their cattle. She also did some work for the America First Policy Institute, according to this page. So it's a mixed bag, but so I throw that in there. This is an interesting little quote from Mr. Judge Brown, Mr. Judge Joe Brown.
There's an interesting collaboration going on in the Middle East that very few people are aware of. Israel, Egypt, Saudi Arabia. There's also a very close connection between the Saudi intelligence network, the CIA, and Mossad.
I think where you're going with this is they're covering this up because of intelligence agency involvement.
Yeah.
Right. Again, not rocket science. Now, coming back to the point where Bongino and Cash Patel are claiming to, are threatening to leave if they refuse to stop the issue here, stop hiding this from the American people. Just play a little history clip here.
Nobody has resigned over this. No one. I have an important message now too. This is directed at the people who know. The people who know. I'm asking you as a friend. Life is calling, man. It's time to pick up the phone. Big people do big things. Small people do small things. The courageous are going to speak out. I don't want to hear lectures about, my pension and my... I resigned and walked away from my job, and there was no guarantee anything was ever going to come out of it because I believed in something bigger, so you can spare me the lectures. You'll probably get whistleblower protection. Go get yourself a lawyer and speak out now. You're running out of time. Life's calling, man. Pick up the phone. Nobody has...
Right, so he's basically talking to himself there nowadays. This gentleman here, who is a former FBI agent, had some interesting to say regarding the internal, clashes over this stuff in the FBI and DOJ.
So it's been kind of a wild day. I guess we could say that gently. But people who watch InfoWars are not surprised that there was some chaos and turmoil brewing. This administration really stepped in it, and they stepped in it on Sunday when this memo was released. And I came on to talk to Alex about it. I'm talking to you about it now. But the fact of the matter is I think that they massively underestimated people's interest in seeing elite pedophiles pay for their crimes.
Yeah.
And that people who do bad things to kids in this country aren't supposed to get away with it. They're not supposed to be able to walk off into the sunset or leave Great Britain without a fear in the world, without a care in the world. And it sounds like that's actually created some concerns for a former kind of media empire, once and future media guy. Our current FBI director seems like he is now perturbed as well. And so we've got this feud between Pam Bondi, who signed off on the memo, apparently, per the DAG. The DAG is the Deputy Attorney General. Deputy Attorney General is the number 2 in the DOJ, but really the person who runs the nuts and bolts of the DOJ. In the same way, the number 2 at the FBI is the one who actually is supposed to run the FBI. We're in kind of a weird scenario, though, and I want you to consider this, too, because what I saw right away happen was an info op, and it was pretty blatant and obvious. All of the right-wing influencer crowd, the social media crowd, and the media itself, like the traditional media, the comeback types and so on, right? They all jumped out and they immediately said, Dan Bongino is a really great guy. He's really good, and we need him. And if we lose him, I stand with Dan. And so they've lent their credibility that Dan did the right thing, even though they don't know what that thing might have been yet, or maybe they've had some, behind the scenes. We actually saw Julie Kelly, I've been referring to as the unofficial press secretary of the FBI, because she told us that the FBI wasn't interested in Epstein, that the Epstein files were irrelevant and nobody was going to go to jail and everybody got away with it. And she did that about 6 weeks ago.
Yeah, I remember.
So for me, that was kind of a bellwether. I was like, oh, okay, got it. Okay. And then when it happened, it was like, yeah, of course. We heard it already from the one person that would be able to tell us that. So that happens. The second thing is I started seeing government types and people that are going to be around government talking about Kash Patel and backing him up. And what I saw was nobody covering for Pam Bondi except the one person that might need to cover for Pam Bondi, which is the president of the United States.
Right.
And he said, I've got Pam back. So she's not going anywhere from what I can tell. It doesn't look like Kash Patel would go anywhere. And I mentioned that to Alex a couple days ago. But I do think that Dan, I said the earliest he'd be out was this summer, and it's summer. I think he's out by the end of the year. But Glenn Beck just put out a post a few minutes ago, and he deleted it. And it said, Dan is leaving the FBI. And it's really sad, and here's the reasons why.
Wow. Did you get a screenshot?
Now it's deleted. Oh, yeah. It's in my timeline if you guys want to take a look at it.
I'll pull that up.
Come on, man.
You're the best.
My quote was only one thing. It was like, oh. And then one of my buddies came back to me and he goes, hey, dude, I had to video it because it's gone. And of course, it was obviously still sitting in my mentions. So I went through and I grabbed it off my profile and I just reposted it for folks. So what that means, but look, we know that Glenn Beck is at least friendly with and is on a first name basis with Dan Bongino. That could be one of those things. You know how it goes. Sometimes somebody tells you something, you go out there and you decide to share it. And then they hit you up and they're like, hey, man, too soon. delete.
Anyway, so they're looking at leaving, allegedly, purportedly, over this nonsense. Of course, we have another master in this area here, James O'Keefe, of O'Keefe Media Group, formerly of Project Veritas. And they have a leaked audio of an FBI deputy senior national intelligence officer, Rami Hassan, claiming law enforcement turned a blind eye in the Jeffrey Epstein case. So you gotta love James O'Keefe crew. James O'Keefe, if you don't know who they are, they go out and they get people on interviews where they think they're on a date. Like, James will literally dress up, he'll put on like a pair of glasses and go out on a date with someone who thinks that they're on a date with another man. They met off of Grindr or something like that, and they'll spill all the information that's happened with White House intelligence people of the Biden administration. Has happened with a bunch of people. They get all kinds of good information. They got the Planned Parenthood talking about they're selling the aborted fetal organs. I want to say the one guy who was working with the White House intelligence, they confronted him about it, and he like grabbed the tablet out of their hand and tried to smash it, and they got all that on video too. I mean, it's like you can't write comedy like that, bro. So anyway, moving on. I wanted to throw this in here just as a little caveat. Bondi allegedly, I've seen this posted a couple of places now, dismissed the charges against this gentleman here who gave people vaccine cards and did not administer the clot shot, the mRNA clot shot, which, matter of fact, I just read this, that Minnesota has just put forth legislation to declare the clot shot a biological weapon, the mRNA shots, okay? So, you know, people can think a lot of different things, but when you have actual, you know, states that are putting forth legislation to declare this clot shot a clot shot, declare it a biological weapon, that's pretty hard to ignore. And this guy was looking at going to prison, and they're claiming it was like a life sentence. I read one of these articles here, you know, because he destroyed government property. And you had people on Twitter saying, "Oh well, you know, you can't just break the law like that." But he saved people's lives. He saved children's lives by not injecting them with that poison. Injected them with saline instead. And they're trying to charge him with the crime for destroying $20,000 worth of poison, whatever it was, 50,000. I don't give a shit if it was 500,000 worth of that poison. Good man. And so Pam Bondi apparently has stepped up, and dismissed the charges against him. So I just read that. It's been out in the last couple hours. So, you know, he gets a point for that one, 100%. And there's video of the guy like crying after the hearing when they're trying to put him in prison. You know, these you know, they're trying to get him involved in that preschool to for-profit prison pipeline. So next up, we have Mr. Greg Reese. He's a pretty indefatigable guy. Just play his video here. Wait, that's going way too fast. I'll slow it down here.
The Reese Report is now fully funded by my Substack subscribers. Subscribe today and support my work at gregreese.substack.com.
Sorry about that.
Donald Trump has been friends with Jeffrey Epstein for years. In 2002, he told New York Magazine that he's, quote, known Jeff for 15 years. Terrific guy. He's a lot of fun to be with. It is even said that he likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side. No doubt about it, Jeffrey enjoys his social life. Close quote. Jeffrey Epstein claimed he introduced Donald Trump to Melania. Epstein is known for grooming beautiful women for powerful men. On July 6, 2019, Epstein was arrested. 2 weeks later, he was murdered in his jail cell, all during President Trump's first term. Shortly after Trump began his second term, political agents and useful idiots posed for the cameras with DOJ binders, as if justice was coming, and nothing followed. Until this week, when we were told that the DOJ and the FBI concluded that Epstein had no client list and died by suicide. While this isn't fooling the awakening masses, political agents and useful idiots began doing their best to defend Trump and steer everyone towards immigration, where the solution will obviously be the digital ID for every U.S. citizen. The overwhelming majority of U.S. government representatives are the recipients of hundreds of millions of dollars paid out by AIPAC, the American Israel Public Affairs Committee. Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell were clearly part of a sexual blackmail operation run by the Mossad and the CIA to further own the American government. This is why our government officials are all on board with the genocide being committed by the U.S. and Israel.
Do you think that there can be a two-state solution that creates an independent?
I don't know. I'd ask Bibi that question. You have the greatest man in the world to answer that age-old question, two-state. Go ahead. You give him your honest answer.
I think Palestinians should have all the powers to govern themselves, but none of the powers should threaten us. That means that certain powers, like overall security, will always remain in our hands. Now, that is a fact, and no one in Israel will agree to anything else because we don't commit suicide. We want life, we cherish life for ourselves, for our neighbors, and I think we can work out a peace between us and the entire Middle East with President Trump's leadership, and by working together, I think we can establish a very, very broad peace that will include all our neighbors.
When Pam Bondi was asked about all this, Trump couldn't help but interrupt her and show frustration that anyone was concerned about his old friend of 15 years.
One of the biggest ones is whether he ever worked for a American or foreign intelligence agency. The former Labor Secretary, who was Miami U.S. Attorney Alex Costa, he allegedly said that he did work for an intelligence agency. So could you resolve whether or not he did? And also, could you say why there was a minute missing from the jailhouse tape on the next day?
Yeah, sure.
Did I just interrupt for a second? Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? This guy's been talked about for years. You're asking, we have Texas, we have this, we have all of the things. And are people still talking about this guy, this creep? That is unbelievable. Do you want to waste the time, and do you feel like answering?
I don't mind answering.
I mean, I can't believe you're asking a question on Epstein at a time like this, where we're having some of the greatest success and also tragedy with what happened in Texas. It just seems like a desecration, but you go ahead.
And that's not one of the most repugnant, insulting, shut the F up, don't talk about the things that, that your masters are involved with. Again, I have respect for some of the things Trump's gotten done, a lot of things I've seen happen that appeared to be on the good side, but that was about the most disgusting, insulting, same old rhetoric, how dare you question, what these pedophiles were up to, as if we're supposed to forget about it 24 hours after they just did a 180-degree turn and decided to gaslight us and tell us that there is no client list. The one political cartoon showed, it's on my desk, we're getting to it, we're reviewing it now, Cash is working hard on it, oh, it doesn't exist. And then he says, are you still talking about that? Doesn't get more repugnant than that.
And Pam Bondi suggested that the child porn they have in evidence was Epstein's personal collection that he downloaded from the internet and nothing at all to do with blackmail.
Sure. First, to back up on that, in February, I did an interview on Fox, and it's been getting a lot of attention because I was asked a question about the client list, and my response was, it's sitting on my desk to be reviewed, meaning the file, along with the JFK, MLK files as well.
She's an attorney. That's what she does for a living, is lie, in case you didn't realize that.
That's what I meant by that. Also, to the tens of thousands of video, they turned out to be child porn downloaded by that disgusting Jeffrey Epstein. Child porn is what they were. Never going to be released, never going to see the light of day. To him being an agent, I have no knowledge about that. We can get back to you on that.
Greg Reese reporting.
Right. He just downloaded porn onto his computer. Epstein just had porn that he downloaded on his computer. This documentary here is a really good one. I'm not going to play it, but it's about Les Wexner's involvement. And I want to say it's here that I discovered there's a thing where Ghislaine Maxwell was being deposed. It's a deposition where you're under oath and you answer questions face to face, as opposed to like a discovery request, like a request for production, request for admission, interrogatory, where you answer questions under oath on paper. The deposition is one where you answer questions under oath face to face. And allegedly, when she was asked the questions under oath about if she was a citizen of any other countries, she said yes. I said, what? She said, Terramar. Now, if you never heard of this one, I talked to a lot of people that have never heard of this. They had a fleet of submarines, and this entity allegedly had citizenship. Okay. Now, if you want to take, and apply a bit of intelligent reasoning for about a nanosecond as to what these entities, what these sick pukes could have possibly been doing with this fleet of submarines out there with their islands out there, really close to an island owned by Joe Biden, and something I actually just stumbled across here, next to an island owned by Mr. Richard Branson, the owner of Virgin Records, if you know anything about that. So I'm going to play this guy's little clip here. This is a really good clip.
Let's talk about how freaky Ghislaine Maxwell's deposition is for a second. This is a screenshot of a segment from her deposition, but check this out. They ask her, are you a citizen of the United States? And she responds, I am. Are you also a citizen of England? They ask, and she answers, I am. But this is where it kind of gets strange. They then ask, are you a citizen of any other land? And she responds, Terramar. Now, Terramar obviously isn't a land or a country, and yet Ghislaine Maxwell responds in such a way that indicates that it is. Now, maybe she was just joking or being kind of snarky, but given the hot water that she was currently in, I doubt she'd be joking around a lot. So what is Terramar exactly? We know that Terramar was a sustainable ocean development plan where multiple countries would sign up to help protect a portion of the ocean. That's at least what it is on paper. We know that Jeffrey Epstein provided funding for it, and the Clinton Foundation supported it by featuring it on their website. But we don't know really what it actually accomplished. It had no offices. It was basically just a shell company in a way. But despite its origins, purpose, and accomplishments being a bit of a mystery, some very powerful and influential people signed up to support Terramar. For instance, here's Richard Branson tweeting out in November 9th, 2012, want to help save the ocean? Join us and become Terramar Project citizens. And note that he uses the word citizens. Now, before you go saying that this was just bad luck on Branson's part, he had no idea what Ghislaine was doing or anything like that, Jeffrey Epstein was already arrested years before that in 2007, so it's not by chance that he publicly decides to endorse the Terramar Project, which was created by Epstein's best friend and recruiter. And like I said previously, with Branson, it gets a little fishy because Richard Branson owns an island not far from Epstein's island, Little St. James, and he hosted the NXIVM sex cult on his island. This is documented public knowledge, as you can see from this headline here. Richard Branson with NXIVM. Billionaire says he knew nothing about Rainier, who was the founder of NXIVM. So I guess it's just really bad luck with Richard Branson, right? He endorses one sex trafficker's project, Terramar, and just accidentally hosts a sex cult party on his island. Right. Terramar also endorsed Migaloo. Migaloo is a company that constructs yachts that can transform into submarines. Look, all I'm saying is it's a little freaky. We have a sex trafficker that owns an island next to another guy that owns an island pretty close to his that endorses sex trafficking, and they have the capability to remain undetected by traveling under the water if they so chose. And the real icing on the cake, guys, is one of the founding sponsors of the International Center for Missing and Exploited Children is Richard Branson, the guy that endorsed Ghislaine Maxwell's Terramar project and hosted a sex cult party on his island. P.S. The same guy that designed the Terramar logo created Barack Obama's Hope and Change poster too.
So, Richard Branson is one of these music industry people. Now, if no one's aware of this, the music industry is replete with satanic symbolism. Now, no need to be religious to understand this, to comprehend this, okay? They are Luciferians. And you look at the symbolism in the music videos, and that there are so many instances, I'm not even going to go into that, citing them, from, yeah, it's sick. From, this Lady Gaga to Jay-Z to, I mean, you name it. The satanic symbolism is just in your face. And this is the logo of Virgin Records. The black heart, the syzygy of the cloned woman, creepy looking cloned entity here, the dead tree, the red dragon, okay? This is the kind of symbolism that, if you are symbol literate, should raise a huge red flag. Now, if you want to learn about this, I highly recommend one of Michael Tessarian's documentaries. His website is unslaved.com. I use some of his clips in some of my other videos. He's a brilliant researcher and documentary producer. And his documentary series called Origins and Oracles, with titles like Atlantis, Alien Visitation, and the Genetic Manipulation, the subversive use of sacred symbolism in the media, astrotheology and sidereal mythology, the Irish origins of civilization, divination and the goddess tradition. Okay, go watch the subversive use of sacred symbolism in the media. Okay, these entities have been using the same symbolism for thousands of years. From the predictive programming in films to their logos. I mean, how many major propaganda media outlets have you seen where their logo contains the all-seeing eye? Okay, and that's just one of the most blatant examples. I mean, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of examples. You just have to look. Okay, you just have to only have to but look. So this Branson character, it's also well known that the music industry, as I said, it wasn't obvious that their symbolism is owned by people who have they're descendants of some ancient groups, that are some very, very, very bad people. Like I said, they've been using the symbolism for thousands of years. So you tell me Richard Branson's involved, and Richard Branson is part of founding the Missing Children's Association. Okay, that should make your, again, we keep a positive consciousness here. It's a spiritual battle, but if that doesn't at least not make your stomach knot, at least make your, bing go off in your brain, okay? The entities who set up these type of organizations are the ones who are committing the most atrocities. What's the quote? Hospitals destroy health, attorneys destroy justice, religions destroy spirituality, universities destroy education, etc. So you can see, and this is actually news to me, there's a Richard Branson's involvement. I've known about Terramar for a long time. So this is the link that Branson put up there, which has now been taken down. And yeah, it's a Save the Oceans nonprofit, okay, where they're using submarines to transport their victims around underwater between Biden's island and Branson's island and Epstein's island, allegedly. Okay, that's my theory. You can start talking about theories. I mean, who owns a fleet of submarines like this and they're in prison for trafficking people? Okay? Yeah. Terramar project, not that too much. Once again, another article about her, that they shut down Terramar like a few days after Epstein was arrested. Another interesting thing that people might not know about that there is a military base, a naval base in California, and I always forget if it's called China Lake or China Bay. You can look this up. It was hit with an earthquake, I want to say the day before Epstein was arrested. Those are facts. Theory is there is some connection there, that they were perhaps planning some kind of retaliation for arresting Epstein, from that military base, and they hit it with like an earthquake weapon. I mean, we know they had weather modification. Our next story is about that, but that's an interesting little piece of information too. And we know that Ghislaine's father was a hardcore Mossad agent. I mean, Wikipedia is one of the most controlled, censored things you could imagine. Okay, 15 years ago or so, I tried to edit some documents about Wi-Fi, and the hundreds of studies that have been proven that Wi-Fi causes cancer, tumors, stillbirth, leakage of the blood-brain barrier, DNA damage, etc., etc. Okay, I built a website for a guy who sued the Portland public school system, and he had hundreds of citations from other countries, scientific citations, academic citations that prove that the Wi-Fi and cell phones are absolutely destructive to biological entities. So I'm just giving that as an example for what Wikipedia is worth. David Wilcock calls it CIApedia, okay, and even they say right there on their page, a ways down actually, I guess, but right there on their page where I just showed you, Robert Maxwell was a known Mossad asset. Okay, known links to the MI6, KGB, and the Mossad. So people on Twitter who are bashing Tucker Carlson for saying, "Oh, he's anti-Jewish, he's anti-Israel." Okay, like they're either religiously biased because they follow this allegedly Christian idea that you cannot ever criticize Israel. Of course, Israel is not the Israel of the Bible. Israel was created by the Rothschild. Forget now, it could have been one of the Rockefellers, but they admit that now. I think it was one of the Rothschilds who created the new Israel. It's not the ancient Israel. Anyway, they were Mossad. What's the word I'm looking for? Agents. Mossad. And to deny it is just pretty, turning a blind eye to the facts. All right, so next up we have the flooding in Texas. So, just killed a bunch of people. It's an atrocity. It's a crime against humanity, what was done here. If it was done intentionally, which I allege that it was. Here's some of the radar and the weather mapping graphs here. Here are some of the children that were killed by this flooding. Okay? And I've actually seen some of these entities now on Twitter saying, "Oh, good, I'm glad those little future colonists were," I hope that they enjoy their karma from that. Anyway, there's one of the counselors who was killed by the flood. So meet Augustus Dorco, right there with his old pal, this insidious entity here. Okay, who's had 100 people suicided in the last 35, 40 years, whatever it's been. So, here is the Zero Hedge article about this. Right, he talks about his heart be going out to these people, okay? I mean, again, these entities that allegedly are as demonic as hell. So, this is what he had to say about it. When they asked the question, did you have any involvement in this, okay? And he claims the last cloud seeding mission done by Rainmaker, okay, that's the company that this guy is part of. Rainmaker is his company, okay, if I missed that part. July 2nd in the afternoon, when they allegedly had the most previous cloud seeding, like 48 hours, maybe less than 48 hours, maybe a bit over 48 hours, but no more than 2 full days. Prior to the deaths of all those people, were these drones of these human, waste there creating clouds. Now, it's kind of hard to even look at this as being, for me, there's a Rainmaker right here. Okay. But there he is. Okay.
The drones that we've built are the only ones in NATO that are under 55 pounds that can survive in severe icing conditions.
Congratulations.
This is really cold water, right? So we have these resistors inlaid onto the vehicle that melt the ice off as it accretes onto the drone. So you find the water with the radar. You fly your drone up into these conditions, hope that it survives. You disperse the material. So we have this aerosol dispersion system that basically just emits individual particles that the water freezes onto. And then with the same radar you found the water with, you can now see it freezing, growing into bigger snowflakes, and then eventually bigger drops, and measure how much precipitates downwind.
So you're essentially introducing some type of an agent that has weight to it, and that's pulling the water down.
You're introducing an agent that the water freezes onto, and then it's just the weight of the water that pulls it down. So for every pound of this that you put up, you get in excess of 40 million pounds down on the ground. 40 million pounds of water.
40 million. Wow.
Yeah.
40 million pounds of water. And this entity has the nerve to stand there and say that it's ridiculous to imply that their cloud seeding operation, which admittedly took place about 48 hours prior to the deaths of all those people, is absurd to imply that there's any connection there. Okay, once again, it's like telling you that the files are here, we're almost done, we got them on my desk, almost done reviewing them. Actually, never mind, there are no files. Okay, they think that you are retarded.
How many drones does it take to do this?
Like 3.
I can't look at that guy for much longer. So 40 million pounds of water that they can produce from 3 drones. And they were in the air right over the location, or at least pretty close enough to it, 2 days beforehand. Okay. It's very similar to the story about the fires, and I want to say it was Hawaii. I read this about Hawaii or California. I don't want to misquote this, where the CCP satellites were flying right overhead at the exact time that the fires were started, with their lasers, with their DEWs, their directed energy weapons that only set things on fire that were not blue, burned down a house right next to a house that wasn't even touched. Trees didn't even catch on fire, but the house burned all the way flat to the ground, whereas most houses only burn, and they leave a charred black wreckage of the house. You ever seen a house fire? Okay, so yeah, if that doesn't lead, these people need to go to prison, need to go to Gitmo, in my opinion, without delay, immediately and without delay. They need to be arrested and taken in for what they did to those people, because it appears that they caused that flood. The evidence, and there's a whole bunch more videos. Just go on X and search for Rainmaker. There are probably 5 or 6 more videos I've seen where he's bragging about, what they do, and claiming that it's ridiculous to imply that what we were up in the air doing 2 days beforehand had anything to do with these floods. All right, so lastly, I'll just quickly touch on this. This isn't really, honestly, as vital in my opinion. I mean, it could be down the line, but people are really resisting this Elon Musk's attempt to create this new I'm sorry about that, to create this new party, pointing out he wants carbon tax, he wants gun control for assault weapons, he claims he's a socialist, he to be clear, he does support vaccines in general, and mRNA shots that Minnesota has just put legislation to declare bioweapons specifically. The science is unequivocal. The science that it murders people is unequivocal. So, Musk has done some good things for sure with this firing these feds and revealing these fraud scams with U.S. aid and whatnot. Although I have seen one, it might have been Roger Stone. Someone was saying that that's only like 3% of what they're up to, that they've actually kind of put a stop to, whatever. But people are on a very interesting, here's the last one actually. Marjorie Taylor Greene talking about the weather modification. First they tell us that it doesn't exist, and they tell us that it does exist, but it's good for you. It's so ridiculous. We are in the age of awakening now, which I'm very grateful to say, the age of Aquarius and whatnot, and the quantum shift and the collective consciousness is inevitable. Someone was just talking about this 3.5% is what it takes to cause a shift, and that's about the number of what the critical mass takes to get people to wake up collectively. So as far as this party, people have been posting this, claiming it's all made up of a whole bunch of East Indian people. I don't know if that's true or not. You know, there's a whole lot of things being posted, both in opposition and in support. I think I've seen mostly opposition, honestly. Honestly, I've seen a lot more opposition than support, but some people do support it. You know, it's like Trump promised in 2016 to return the power to the people. You know, and I mean, it's really hard to stomach what Trump said in that Greg Reese clip. You know, we're like, are you still talking about this guy? What, you haven't been told, you know, the most insulting line ever imaginable, that, you know, the files don't even exist after telling you for weeks or months that they're being reviewed. You're still talking about that, you know, 2 days later? What's wrong with you? Why don't you shut up about that? You know, that's like, he pretty much lost a huge percentage of his credibility with anyone who has a mind to think for themselves. But Trump promised, you know, to return the power to the people, okay, in 2016. And it was pretty profound the way he said that, because it does relate to a lot of what I'm talking about with the civics. Although we don't need to wait for any hero to do it, it's already there. You just need to learn how to do it, how to exercise your powers. And so now we have a new party that's making the same promises. Elon Musk is claiming to return the power to the people. Back right there. Give freedom back to the people. Okay? But the people already have their freedom. And unless you address each little county sheriff and each little municipality that's constantly violating the Constitution, you're not going to change anything. You know, people need to be able to do it themselves. They need to learn how to challenge these things. You know, because not everyone has enough money to fight something to the Supreme Court every time they come at you and try to take your livelihood away because you didn't pay your master their driver's license fee or whatever it might be, or take your kids away, etc. So, yeah, it just sounds like another empty sales pitch to me, I'm sorry to say. And when you understand the idea that the people are sovereign in a republic, okay, watch any of my other videos, it is the foundational definition of a republic. Now look it up in Black's Law Dictionary, 5th edition. It's about a one paragraph description. People are sovereign, and they may choose to exercise their powers either directly or through representatives chosen by the people. So, you know, people already have the power. And as far as voting for who is going to rule you, it's a whole bunch of garbage. That's for the citizens. Truly. You know, this is a new idea for people, but the citizens, you know, are involved in a democracy, whereas the people are. It's a republic for the people. And that, again, that might sound like a novel idea to you, but in a republic, statutes and ordinances are advisory. They're not mandatory on the people. On the citizens, which are subjects of the sovereignty, they are mandatory. This is what Grok has to say about it. Why is the American Party crap mostly foreigners? There must be a reason for it. The America Party is Elon Musk's new third-party push in 2015, born from his beef with Trump, aiming to snag a few new key seats and shake up the Uniparty. Mostly foreigners. It's led by immigrants like Musk, South African. I mean, you know what, bro? We're all immigrants. Okay, that's one thing people just always overlook. But anyway, and tech bros pushing H-1B visas for cheap foreign talent over Americans. Real reason, and also America is the whole, everything from Canada to South America, by the way. So it's the United States, actually. Real reason, power grab to flood tech with imports under the guise of innovation. Skeptical, it's just elites gaming the system. I mean, I don't know how much you give attention to Grok, but that's what Grok has to say about it. And once again, as I said, they want their slaves. And slaves are anyone who does not realize that they're one of the people. And if they accept that they are subject to the sovereignty, in other words, if you don't object in the right way when you get to court. Traffic up here. That was nothing else there. And that was the end of that. So, yeah, thanks for watching this episode here. Appreciate it very much. And, you know, like, share, and subscribe to promote the information about the civics, really, is what, you know, but the real point here is to promote the idea of what I'm presenting about how to assert your rights. But we'll do a little bit of news just to get this channel with some regular content. I can only talk about the sovereignty of the people so many times.